So what the movements in Australia did was pretty much raise the awareness and bring people together so that we could highlight that what goes on in America goes on here. But we don't have the mass outpouring of people to come and march the streets. And I don't agree with the violence, but everyone handles their own. That's what they did in America. But here we generally have peaceful protests. And I think that really it brought everyone together in a way that people really haven't come together before for Invasion Day or deaths in custody or anything like that. And it shed a light on that Australia is just as bad as America. But having seen all the footage time and time again of police brutality against our young people, right up to elders that are being, brutalised by police, people still dying in custody, the racism in Australia is so entrenched that it really hasn't made any changes. They're still acting the way that they've always acted since they invaded our shores. And so I basically just wanted to say that in a sense it has highlighted the issue, further, where people have seen that it does occur here, but it also hasn't changed any of the mindset in the police force because they're still getting away with police brutality and killing our people and things like that. There is no justice system in Australia for Aboriginal people, in my view, when it comes to that kind of stuff. And we don't have the resources to bring in legal teams to be able to support the fight against those kind of issues either.
Now, thanks, Marianne. And are there other issues you'd like to talk about? I know you've
Yeah. So basically what I wanted to talk about is that the capitalism that exists in Australia comes from a genocidal system that aimed to dispossess our people in the first place. So they actually brought the racism here, and through the White Australia policy, their actual whole aim was a land grab, to come down here, take the land, take the resources at the expense of the original people of the land. And they still continue to do that today. So the only difference from now, from colonisation or invasion, whatever people refer to it as, to now, is that Aboriginal people actually have certain rights where they can't get away with the mass murders that they did back then. The stolen generation is now entrenched within welfare departments like Family and Children's Services and the Department of Child Protection in WA. So they're still removing our children at an alarming rate, but they're using it by saying that Aboriginal people neglect their kids, don't know how to look after their kids, when more money right across the country is actually spent on removing children rather than engaging in family support services. So then you've got the prisons where the men are taken away, the women are taken away so they can't mother their children, the men are taken away so that they can't procreate and create more children, be there to support the family. And all the social justice issues that our people go through and suffer from to enter those institutions in the first place actually stem from the dispossession and the genocide because of the capitalist system that exists today. And so, you get a lot of racists out there that will say, well, Aboriginal people need to help themselves. Aboriginal people get all of this funding. And it's like, and Aboriginal people get all this free stuff. So what are they complaining about? And we don't get no free stuff. And the only Aboriginal people that actually have a chance to succeed are people that are able to get those good jobs because they've either been unaffected by the systems or they've had healing throughout family, culture, whatever avenues they've gone through, that the majority of Aboriginal people don't have access to. It's really sad that they sit there and they'll say, oh, Aboriginal people sit on welfare, this and that. And it's like, well, actually, you're paying the rent to us for the stolen land, for the illegal occupation, while the system sits there and reaps all the benefits and makes all of this money, and the rich get richer, the poor get poorer at the expense of the original people of this country. And it's really sad time and time again when we're trying to move forward, and we'll create programs that have been developed and implemented by our people. But history shows whenever we're doing something that works, the government strips us of that funding, or they take away that program, the service. It's because our people are an Aboriginal industry. So they make so much money off of the oppression of Aboriginal people through the court system, through the removal of children, through keeping our people down. They do not want Aboriginal people, and this is just my view, they don't want Aboriginal people to succeed, because look at how far we've come over the last 50 years through all of the land rights movements, you know, through our people with the sovereignty movement standing up and asserting our sovereign rights to these lands. And that's why native title is basically a capitalist system where lawyers, white privileged lawyers, and you know, non-Aboriginal, whatever terms people want to refer to, they're generally white privileged lawyers that work in with mining companies and land councils that aren't culturally mandated by the people to serve for them on their behalf. Land councils are actually created through the Native Title Act to manage lands under native title. And all native title does is give Aboriginal people native title rights to their land. We can't build an economy from that. You know, we can't succeed, you know, economically through native title. And mining companies get rich. There's no veto on mining. So if people engaged in the native title regime, in a sense, if they don't negotiate with mining companies, well, then there's no royalties or contracts created for some sort of money to go back into programs and services that the communities might want. And, you know, people who know me know I'm dead against native title. I'm all for, you know, total land rights and sovereignty, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to escape the oppression that's down on the ground and actually be able to survive in a system that was designed to destroy us. And people will say, oh, they've got native title, you know, like they get royalties. And it's like, no one gets cash in their hand. We don't get royalties. The money goes through to the land council, and then the land council decides how that money is going to be spent. You might have Aboriginal communities that have contracts with the mining companies where they might get royalties every year, and they can do what they like with that money. But native title is created for mining companies to do what they do, and then the government get in there, they're getting rich, while the Aboriginal people are losing sacred, significant sites and dreamings that are interrupting the line of culture. Mum's just on the thing there. Yeah, go to Dad. And so it's really, really hard trying to create the education and the awareness to the wider society to let them know that, hey, you know, everything that was brought to this country has actually destroyed our people. It hasn't created a better place. Education, health, welfare, all of those kind of things. Our people had our own governance structures. We were rich in resource and sustainability, and creating a land base for future generations to continue our culture, because it's all about community. It's not about individuals getting rich, you know, and each other getting rich and having shareholders and businesses at the expense of people suffering. It was about sustainability, and it still is about sustainability. And it's really, really hard trying to get out to wider society. And that's why forums like this and rallies and things like that are really important, so that we can spread the message and let people know that what we have here is an illegal system, you know, where people get rich, our people still suffer, our people are still dying, our kids are still being removed, you know, and we don't have a Robin Hood here, you know, like to be able to make everything okay. We need the support of non-Aboriginal society, because yous are the majority of the population, to walk with us and get down at the grassroots level and realise that land councils and places like that are part of that capitalist system. They are not designed or created to support Aboriginal people on the ground. So, and it's really hard with our own native title fight on Noongar country, because, you know, we're being forced to enter a system that we don't want to. And if you're not a member of the land council, well, then you don't have any rights in regards to the votes of actions that the land council are doing. You know, you don't have any right to any of the information unless they have information sessions that are for all Noongar people, which is hardly ever, you know. And I think that it's really important that if the government really want to come to the table, what they need to do is get down with the elders and the leaders that are down on the ground doing the hard work, because generally the people in those places are supportive of the government systems that were just designed to oppress us. And so in a sense, it's like assimilate or stay oppressed. And it's not fair that we should be forced into a system that doesn't benefit us as a society in general. You know, we need to all be able to work together to create foundations where no one is homeless. You know, no one is forced to steal to eat and then be sent to jail. You know, no one, you know, children shouldn't be taken and kidnapped at the hands of a system because their parents might be struggling. There needs to be more of a focus on family support. You know, the constitutional recognition, you know, the statement of the heart, all of that kind of stuff is all tokenism. You know, even Kevin Rudd saying sorry was all tokenism, because they're still removing children at a higher rate than they did during the stolen generation, even though Kevin Rudd said sorry, it's never going to happen again. So the government create all these tokenistic gestures to make it look like they're working with people on the ground, but in fact they're not. And I'm sure this goes on in our non-Aboriginal society as well. But it's really hard being a minority and being the original custodians and continuing custodians, knowing that we have cultural obligations to country that aren't being met because of the greed and the want for the dollar to, you know, have money that they're never going to spend in their lifetime. You know, I don't understand that. And I think I'll probably just keep rambling if I keep going. So probably just, you know, put it over to questions and things like that. But it's really hard, and just trying to survive and maintain our culture in a system that just doesn't support it, you know.
Thanks heaps, Marianne. And I'll open the floor up to questions and discussion. Put your name in the chat box if you want to say something. You can either you know, ask questions or talk about the points that Marianne's raised, or any of the speakers, or anything that's come up in discussion. So who'd like to say a few words? Is that someone called May who's wanting to speak?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, May.
Thank you. Marianne, that was a great talk. I really appreciate you talking about the Land Council. I always had a question in regards to where do they come or what happens.